तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशकारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
First of all, we'd like to welcome Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, coming directly from the UK after a month of traveling there in Nepal and a bit jet lag, and he's trying to get to the Florida weather and the heat. And I think he doesn't need any introduction. Everybody know him, and we know him as a spiritual scientist. Again, he gives a twist of Krishna consciousness in a different way, and not the traditional way that we hear all the time. And welcome, Prabhu, to Florida Day.
I'm delighted to be here with all of you today. And am I audible behind?
Yes.
So I'll be using this tablet as a whiteboard for writing and drawing. And I'll speak on the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 5. We'll continue this thing tomorrow, but here, let's quickly look at the verse and then I'll explain. This is Krishna is telling us how we can relate with our mind in a way that is constructive and not destructive. I'll tell the meaning of the words, then we can recite the words once, and then go to the top. So, Uddhare. Uddhare means elevation. Atmana Atmanam. The self you elevate with the mind. So, one Atma refers to the self, another Atma refers to the mind. So, you can repeat the same after me. Uddhare Atmana Atmanam. No. Atmanam, not certainly. What you should not do with the Atma is avasadaye. Avasadaye means let it get degraded. Natmanam avasadaye. Atma eva. The Atma is certainly. Ya Atmano bandhu. The Atma certainly is eva and ya. Both of them are real forces. Certainly, surely, definitely, like that. So the double emphasis over here. The self, the mind is certainly the self's friend. The mind is the friend of the self. Atmaivaya Atmano Bandhur. But it is not just the friend. Atma Eva. The Atma certainly is Ripu. Ripu is Bandhu is friend, Ripu is enemy. Ripu Atmana. So the self can be the mind can be the enemy of the self also. Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. Vedatmanatmanam Natmanam avasadaye Atmaiva yatmano bandhu Atmaiva ripuratmanah Uddharedatmanatmanam Natmanam avasadaye Atmaiva yatmano bandhu Atmaiva ripuratmanah. So I'll try to depict what this verse is saying visually, and then we will discuss what is going on over here. Basically, the Bhagavad Gita gives us a three-level vision of the self. It states that our existence is at three levels. So there is the soul, then we're making the mind bigger over here, mind and body. So there's the physical level of reality, which is where we function most of the time. But from the body, the link is to the external world. So for example, this chair, this wall, all this is the external physical world. And we link to it through our body. And the body links to it, we link to the body through the mind. The soul, mind, and body. The mind is a certain level of reality. The certain level of multiple components. But let's keep it simple at this stage. Soul, mind, and body. Now, if you put it another way, with respect to specifically this, because this is the soul. And then, out here is the physical world. The physical world includes our body. However, the soul gets access to the physical world only through the mind. That means when the soul now, consciousness comes out. Consciousness is like the energy of the soul. Just like if you have a flashlight. The flashlight itself is a physical object. And in the flashlight, the beam of light comes out. So like that, the soul is the source. Source is like the flashlight. And the beam of light coming out from the soul is consciousness. So consciousness comes through the mind to the physical world. And that is how we perceive the world.
Sorry, I'm just testing it's working on.
So now, when we are perceiving the world, we could say that the mind is like the window. It is through the mind we perceive the world. Now, just to make this a little clearer, what is going on over here. Sometimes we become absent-minded. Now, what does this mean? Say there's a particular object over here. Say this object is a person. Maybe some other person we are talking. And now, ideally speaking, our mind should be here. That means that person is, say we are talking with that person is talking with us. So there's a discussion going on. But sometimes what happens is, instead of the mind being here, the mind goes off over here. That means when this happens, some of our consciousness is going. A little bit of our consciousness is available over here for the other person, but most of our consciousness is gone over here. That means absent-minded. The mind is absent where the body is present. That's the idea of absent-minded. The mind has gone somewhere else. Now, when sometimes this happens, you're talking with someone and we may feel that that person's eyes are glazing. They say, earth to you, earth to you. So, where have you gone? Where have you gone to come back to your planet you're going to? Come back to earth. Like that. Earth to you. So, at least when the mind becomes absent-minded, we don't perceive what is happening. So, suppose, we sit for a talk. We sit for a talk, but our mind goes for a walk. And then in the talk, there is some joke, the mind comes back. What was the joke? What was the joke? What was the joke? So the mind wanders off. And this is where we become distracted. We become so absent-minded, distracted. All these are results because the mind is wandering off. However, while the mind's wandering off is a problem, there is a bigger problem. Whatever. So, at least when the mind wanders off, we realize something happened over here. I didn't know what happened. But more dangerous, this particular verse, Krishna is saying that you should elevate yourself with your mind. Don't degrade yourself. What he means by that is that if we focus, if the mind is where the body is, then we can function properly. Then we can be productive, we can be effective. But if the mind goes off, then it becomes a problem. So when the mind acts as an enemy, there are many ways in which the mind can act as an enemy. We look at some of them. So one of them is it just wanders. And that is harmful. But at least it's relatively easy to understand when the mind has wandered. Because we realize, I don't know what happened over here. I don't know what was spoken. I don't know what was done. But more damaging is when the mind distorts. That means the information is coming in from the mind. But it does not come straight. So earlier, when I was taking the example of the function, how the mind's functioning, I took one example, that is of the mind functioning as a window. But this is a window which is almost like a rotating door kind of thing. So right now, say out of the window there are some children and looking at the children. But suddenly, the rotating door is a particular position, you go in this way. The rotating door shifts in that way, you go through that door, you go another way. So if the window shifts somewhere, and so seeing the children over, you start seeing something else. But the window shifts. But at least it is showing something. Now, however, the mind doesn't always mean the generally window is transparent. It shows us what is out there. But in this case, the mind can also become like a filter. Now, if we have a water filter, the water filter leaves out the dirt and then let the clean water come. But the mind's filter does not always leave out the unclean things. But most of the time, the mind lets go the unclean things and leaves out the clean. So, if there is some sensual temptation available, there might be 100 things in the place. Mind will go straight to the temptation. And that's what it will focus on. That's what it will let go. So, when it becomes the filter, that's where it can be even more damaging. Because in this case, there is selective and deceptive perception. If we're seeing only one part of the thing, and when we see one part of the thing, we don't realize we're seeing only one part of it. We are thinking that we are seeing everything. And then that is when we become deceived. So we see somebody speaking harshly. We get angry. and we think that person is a short-tempered person. Maybe, or maybe someone has done something irresponsible or something very important, and that anger is justified. The anger is actually doing something good, protecting people from harm. So when the mind acts as a filter, basically what happens is the mind gives selective perception. The selective perception itself is not a problem because we always select things. Right now, in this room, so many things are happening. You can't perceive all the things. So perceiving all the things, you'll be able to perceive nothing. We have only so much processing capacity inside our brain. So we need to select what we focus on. But the problem is that if you are right now focusing on what I'm hearing, or I'm focusing on, say, one of you and how you're responding to what I'm saying, that's fine. But when I'm focusing on one of you, I'm aware that there are other people also. But if I start acting as if there's only one person over, then it will get inappropriate. I know one speaker, actually in my early days, there was one speaker, he would give a class, and throughout the class, he would look only at the person sitting right in front and don't look anywhere else throughout the class. And the result was, in that class, nobody was allowed to sit in front. Now, it's fine if the speaker looks at that. We feel connected. When the speaker is constantly looking at us, okay. So, selective perception itself is not a problem. But when selective perception makes us believe that one thing that we are seeing, that is everything. And that is when this perception becomes deceptive perception. And this deceptive perception, that can be a serious problem. So the mind's perception, when it becomes a filter, it gives us only one part of reality. And that one part of reality is what leads to deceptive perception. Now, deceptive perception can be in various formats. There can be misconceptions. There can be biases. Now, generally, when we use the word bias, what does the word bias bring to your mind?
Favorable to one person.
Yes, favorable to one, partial to one person, especially. And if the word bias is used in negative sense, that means you're biased in favor of that person or you're biased against that person. So bias is basically the opposite of partiality. Opposite of partiality? The opposite of impartiality. It is bias is essentially partiality. So when we already say we already like some person. If suppose somebody is going to do conflict resolution, somebody has to be a judge for a conflict. And the judge already likes party A and dislikes party B. Then what happens is the judge will interpret all the evidence in support of party A and will downplay all the evidence in support of party B. That's why a judge has to have what is called as no conflict of interests. Now, a judge should be there simply to judge. He should not have any specific relationship with either of the sides. So when our mind is biased, then it just doesn't interpret reality properly. It will evaluate properly. I was once at a mediation with two people, and the second person said, "You seem very angry. Can you know what I have done to make you so angry?" The first person replied, "You exist." Now, if somebody has that level of bias, what am I supposed to do? Just stop, please, you should stop existing. So this is bias gone to a toxic degree. So in general, when we say, like sometimes people have mental health problems. Now, mental health problems can be various degrees. It's a spectrum. But when a person is mad or a person is insane, so just in ordinary conversation also, are you insane? Sometimes we use that word. Now, when we use that word insane, what we essentially mean is that your understanding is so completely disconnected from reality. How can you think like this? Insane. So, if you're trying to prove some good to some person, oh, you come here to rob me? Give you something. You think I'm going to rob you? Are you insane? So essentially, what happens is that the mind, when the mind wanders off, it just doesn't perceive what is happening. But when it filters, it just gives us a distorted picture. So when you talk about insanity means what is happening is, see, the soul is here, the mind is here, and then the physical world is here. So the soul, mind, and the physical world. So when the input comes from here, then the same input comes out from here. So it comes from the physical world to the mind, and from the mind it comes to the person. So then what is happening is, see, if this input is positive, and what comes out from here is negative, that means the mind's perception is actually the opposite of the reality. It's not only disconnected from reality, it is inverted of a reality. What is the reality? It's the opposite. So this is where we say that this has become, the mind has tendency. So it is not, to be distorted is bad, but it is not just distorted, but it is inverted or perverted, and it's completely off. The opposite of what it is. Sarva arthan viparitamscha. The Bhagavad Krishna says that whatever is the reality, you perceive it opposite. Somebody is kind to us, this person manipulating. And somebody is harsh to us, I think with this person, I cannot live without this. What? What are you thinking? If somebody starts behaving like that, generally in the past, if somebody would be put in a mental asylum, that would because sometimes you see some people, they're walking along the road, and what? You know what happened is, in their mind, some movie is going on. Maybe somebody did something to them, and they are reacting to what is happening in the mind, and it has no connection with what is happening in the physical. Say, suppose in India, cricket is a very popular game. Then the Cricket World Cup is going. Then sometimes on the streets, you might see some young people, so they just hold their hand. Now there is no cricket pitch, there is no ball, there is no bat, and in their imaginary world, they think, "Oh, I'm hitting a match winning six." So what has happened is that their mind has completely disconnected from reality. So insanity means the mind disconnects us from reality. It never distorts. So this is the danger of the mind. When Krishna says it can be your enemy, now he's not saying it is your enemy. It can be. Atmaiva atmano bandhu, atmaiva ripuratma. It can be the friend, it can be the enemy. When does it become an enemy? When it distracts or when it distorts, when it wanders off or when it becomes a filter. So how do we prevent this from happening? So I talk about three broad principles, and then we'll stop and we can have questions behind. So how to ensure that our mind does not act as an enemy, but the mind acts as a friend. So the first principle is patience. The mind can cast a spell, it can distort, but eventually reality wins out. Like if I think, oh, there's no wall over there, there's just a window I can walk through. If I go there, I can walk to it, but I can't walk through it. When my head hits against the wall, then there's a wall over there, there's no path over. So patience means that don't act immediately on the mind's perceptions. This is one of the characteristics of suffering. Patience. So when impulses come, suddenly feel angry with someone. Suddenly we get some wild emotions, some wild desires. Patience. Patience. So when patience, what happens is, so reality eventually overcomes imagination. Now, how soon it will happen, we don't know. But patience, in general, if we get some cravings, we get some urges, we get some rage. It doesn't last for you. It comes, it goes. In general, if we cultivate patience, that helps. So that's the first principle, and all of these are broadly the part of sattva. Sattva guna means that one doesn't immediately give the impulses. But patience alone is not enough. Once a mother told a child, who used to get very angry. Whenever you feel angry with your friends while you're playing, you count it. The anger will go away. The child came back, and the child had a black eye and a bloody nose. What happened? He said, you told me to count till 10, but his mother told him to count till 5. So basically, when we talk about patience, sometimes life acts in such a way that patience is not the solution. So, I'm not saying patient, we be impatient, but it's just that sometimes there are emergencies and we have to act. It's not necessarily that you have to, if somebody is beating us, we can turn away from the situation, we can walk away from the situation. But the problem is, first of all, sometimes we ourselves may find it very difficult to be patient. Or sometimes the situation may not allow us to be patient. It could be a critical situation. We don't know what it is. So patience is important. It's the starting point. It's not the end. And that is why what we need is guidance. Now, by guidance, what do we mean? I am perceiving things in this way. Are things really like this? When my mind has cast a spell on me, does that mean that that spell is it the reality like this, or is it just a spell? I can't see things beyond what my mind is showing. But others' mind may not be showing them. And especially if we trust someone, if we have a good friend, if we have somebody who is trustworthy, then what happens is, say, I am here, my mind is here, and this is the object. So then I am seeing it in a particular way over here. But then if I have a friend, they also have their mind. But their mind may not be distorted the same way. So the same perception is coming here. The same object is being perceived here. So if I perceive this person is a terrible person, this person is cruel, this person is vicious, this person deserves to be destroyed. But then I talk with somebody else. No, not explained. They will be standoffish. They're cruel. So ideally speaking, for us to take guidance, it is not just we have another person. Basically, we need another person. Our trust in this person should be greater than our trust in our mind. So we all have some trust in our mind. Most of the time you can say our trust is quite high, unwarrantedly high, but still it is there. So, and this is a greater than sign, not two V's or inverted V. What I'm saying is, that if we have only even one person, so I am looking at the world. Let's put it here now. See, I am here. My mind is here. My mind is here, and this is the world here. And then this person is here. So then I can look this way at the world, and I can look this way at the world. So this is through the mind, and this is through a friend. That's why having somebody to talk is very helpful. Now, of course, we shouldn't be talking with people who have the same biases as we. Then we're simply reinforcing our misconceptions. You know, some people are very judgmental. You notice that every day there's strong and negative judgments about them. So I used to wonder what would happen if two very judgmental people come together. Normally, judgmental people, what happens is it's very difficult for them to make friends because they're judging everyone. Now, judging is not a bad thing, we have to judge. But judging and labeling and minimizing, that is a big problem. So I knew two people, they were very judgmental, and they told they were going to meet. I was a little nervous, they were going to be explosive. They met for 1 hour and they said, we are the best friends now. And I realized what happened was they came together and they were judging the whole world together. So the judgmentality they are not applied to each other, it is applied to everyone else. So we need somebody who doesn't have our own biases. But if there's somebody who can be like that, then we get some protection from us. Okay, I'm thinking like this. Somebody else is thinking so different. So maybe what I'm thinking might not be right. Now, it could be that the other person is wrong and we might still be right. But at least some level of self-criticality, self-questioning comes up. And that is important. And this is where satsang or association is important. Because when we have association, then in that association, we connect with people whose minds are not as contaminated as the rest of the world. That the minds are not as wild. And that helps us. The last part is transcendence. So patience is basically Sattva-guna. Now guidance can be of various kinds, but guidance, especially as spiritually minded people. And if we are having that patience, we have that guidance, then we connect with transcendence. The word transcend means to go beyond ordinary things. So when there is transcendence, we go beyond our normal situations. We see from a higher perspective. So I'll take another example to illustrate this point. Like if we consider the self is 3 levels. So let's see earlier what I talked about. There is the body, the mind, and the soul. So the soul exists at a higher level. And now you can say the physical world is here, the soul's consciousness comes out of it. If there is some object over there, that could be a tempting object, that could be a threatening object. Generally, these are the 2 broad things that affect our mind strongly. A tempting object triggers desire, and a threatening object triggers fear. And broadly, these are 2 strong emotions that affect us. hey, this is so wonderful. How can I give you? I want it. This is so dreadful. How can I be here? I can just go away from it. So desire and fear are two very strong emotions that arise within us. When this happens, at that time, how do we deal with it? The mind itself, we may have patience. Is this really as enjoyable everything? Is this really as dreadful everything? Okay. We wait, we consult others. But sometimes the mind sports is extremely strong. So at such a time, what we essentially need is that this is almost like a gravity pull. Now, why I use the word gravity over here? If, say, I hold this phone over here. Now, I can hold this phone over here, but the moment I let go, as soon as I let go, it does not require any problem. Should I let it go? Not a very expert catcher, but say the moment I let it go. So like that, sometimes we hold our mind in place. Not going to wait and not going to do it, not going to do it. But a little moment of inattention, holding on to the phone, one moment of inattention, I let it go, it falls. So like that for us, sometimes our mind has, there's almost like a default gravity. It just pulls us and drags us down. So this is where we, how long can we hold on to it? Yes, certainly we will forward, that is important. But what is even more important is, when I talk about this transcendence, what it means is here, above all of these is Krishna, is the Supreme Lord. And to the extent we connect with Him, that gives us an upward pull. Something is pulling us down, but if we are holding on to something above, then we are not pulled down. So this connection with transcendence, it can be done at multiple levels. It can be done directly. It happens over here. This connection of the soul happens with the soul has devotion. The soul is naturally attracted to the Lord. And that connection itself gives satisfaction, that connection gives security. But till that happens, there is a connection to Buddhi's intelligence. So we connect with Krishna through our devotion and through our intelligence. We study scripture, we chant the holy names. And when we do this, there will be an upward hold for us. And to the extent that upward hold is there, to that extent the downward pull won't drag us. And in the case of Krishna, it is not just we who are trying to hold on to him. It is he also who is trying to hold on to us. Tesham aham samudharta, Mrityu samsara sagara, Vami achirat partha, mani aveshi chetasam. Krishna says, so it's like Krishna is holding on to us. He will lift us up. So we try to hold on to Krishna, but Krishna also holds on to us. And when that happens, then we are lifted up. And as we become lifted up, as the mind also experiences remembrance of Krishna, service to Krishna, this is joyful. This is wonderful. Why do I need to get caught in all those things? Why do I need to crave after the words of this? Why do I need to get so worked up about those things? Then the mind comes. And that is when it can start perceiving properly. And when it perceives properly, that is when the mind becomes very clear. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. I've already talked about 4 main points. First point, I talked about how the mind, I talked about 3-level model of the self, the soul, mind, and body. And the mind acts as an enemy in 2 ways. One is
Wandering.
it wanders, it distracts. And the other is it stalks. It can either act as a window which goes off somewhere else, or it can act as a filter. And you can say that insanity is an extreme case where the mind's perception is the opposite of the reality. So either way, the mind is harmful, but distortion is actually more harmful than distraction. Because in distraction, at least there's awareness. Oh, I didn't hear, I didn't see. But distortion, we think we are seeing, but we are seeing the opposite of what it is. In the second point, so we discussed 3 broad points for dealing with the mind in a way that it can be constructive for us. What are the first?
Patience.
Patience. So the mind spells, they can be very powerful, but they don't last for long. So if you just don't do anything first, suddenly I have to use anger or fear or spray. So patience brings us to the mode of goodness. And that helps us to outlast the mind's impulses. The second was guidance. So I am seeing things in a particular way, and sometimes we feel I can't afford patience. This is so dangerous thing. Okay, is it really that dangerous? Yes. If we have someone whom we trust as much, if not more than we trust the mind, or mind, then it's the same way. So guidance, that's why having people who are not susceptible to the same biases that is susceptible to is very difficult. That's why friendship is important. If there are no friends, then we have no one with whom we can actually cross-check what our mind is saying. Because everybody, they have their own selfish agendas. Whom can I trust? That's why friendships are important. Generally, people who are mentally very disturbed are usually the people who don't have friends. They will be surrounded by people, but they don't have close friends. And the last part was transcendence. Third part of the solution. The transcendence means that the mind will drag us down in reacting to worldly objects. Tempting objects, I want them right now. Tempting objects, I have to avoid from here. And we can try to hold ourselves in place, but the best way to hold ourselves in place is to hold on to a higher reality. So we can connect with Krishna, supreme unshakable reality, first through bhakti, where the soul, by its attraction to what the Lord says steady, and also through buddhi, where use our intelligence to know that Krishna is this unchanging state. And thereby, we can gradually ensure that our mind helps us and doesn't harm us. So, any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Very nice class. Thank you very much. Number one. Secondly, your discussion in one segment, insanity, very interesting topic. And what you said about insanity in particular reminded me of two notions. One was there's a famous series of drawings by an artist, and those drawings were kept by the psychiatrist. And what was happening later, they found out that artist was going through a progression of paranoia, going deeper and deeper into paranoia. So the first, and he was a very good artist, the first image that artist drew, at least that they had, was a very accurate, fairly accurate perception of a cat. As that artist progressed in paranoia, the same topic, the cat, same position and everything, but the perception changed. It became more and more sharp. in terms of where the cat has rounded and rounded lines. The lines became very sharp and angular. And finally, when the artist was diagnosed with full-blown paranoia, the cat image was barely recognizable. That's the first thought that came to mind. And the second one was Einstein's definition of insanity, is when a person does the same thing over and over again and expects different results.
Yeah, in general, rounded shapes are somewhat soothing. Sharp edges, sharp shapes, they can be threatening. That's a good point. Now, Einstein's definition of insanity. Actually, what I read a little bit about the context, because one devotee asked me a question. You're chanting every day the same thing and you're expecting different results. Are you doing? So, when I read the context, what he meant was that if you are doing an experiment that has failed, and you keep doing the same experiment again and again and again, it's not going to succeed. You want a particular result, you're okay, it didn't work this way, you have to try in some other. But when we are chanting, it is something different. It's like an archer who's trying to hit the bullseye. Like we're doing the same thing again and again and again. But what we are trying to do it is practice that leads to improvement. So in that case, everything that we do, there are two different things. One is that the process is not working at all. Whereas the process, second is the process slowly being refined by repetition. So that's it. But I agree with that. If somebody is not getting any result at all, experiment has failed, no, it has succeeded. Well, that would be insane. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very nice class. Thank you so much. I was thinking the three things: patience, guidance, and transcendence. Through transcendence, can patience also develop?
Okay. Through transcendence, can patience also develop? Yes, certainly. Because if we consider patience to be a characteristic of goodness, then as we connect with the divine, naturally, when we connect with the one who is unchanging, then the changes of the world don't seem so close. If I have no job, or if I have no savings, then even one small thing in my job, I lose my job and what happens? So every one colleague negatively about it. We should be concerned. But for us, if we have no savings, then every small upheaval in the job is similar. Skill set and devastating. But if we have good savings, if we have good qualifications, then also we are concerned. But we only so threatened, small thing. So similarly, when we have our own savings, we have our own connection with Krishna, and the changes of the world don't affect us so much. And that's how we can stay still.
Thank you.
So patience becomes a natural result of connecting with transcendence.
Yeah, thank you.
He raised first. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. You have patience.
It's very nice point that you made down. We have to connect with Krishna, with Buddhi until we develop Bhakti. So Buddhi is like mind, we have to hold with Buddhi intelligence. So in this whole picture, there is false ego, subtle body can stop. Mind, intelligence, and false ego.
Yeah. So where does the false ego come in? Well, basically, there are different ways of analyzing the contents of the inner world. And in 342, what I spoke of, Krishna talked about it, Krishna doesn't use the false ego word. Evam indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya param manasastha parabhute yobuddhe paravastha. About the sense objects, what the hierarchy that Krishna uses in 342 in the Gita is what I use basically. There are the sense objects. The sense objects. And above them are the senses. Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhya paramana. So the idea is that there might be there might be a delicious and our eyes see. So that is the senses that attract us sense objects. Above them is the mind. Above the mind is the intelligence. Above the intelligence is the soul. This is the hierarchy that Krishna is doing. So sometimes, as I said, we don't even use the intelligence, the soul, mind, and body. The contents of the inner world can be classified in different ways. So basically, the soul, the intelligence, mind, and ego, all three are within the second. And they just function differently. Like if you have a phone. Now, in a phone, you can have the basic operating system. Then you can have the pre-installed apps. And then you have the user installed apps. So all three are software. But functionally, they are different. So the false ego is like the basic operating system. The false ego is what connects the soul with the entire material. With the entire material, the mind and the body. Entirely. Or the subtle body and the gross body. And then the intelligence and the mind are different kinds of software. So the false ego is very subtle. And you could say the false ego is the very subtle arrangement which binds the soul to the mind and the body. Basically, if you put it this way, this is the soul. This is the soul. This is the mind. This is the body. And beyond that is the physical world. So now, in principle, the soul's consciousness can go here, the soul's consciousness can go here. But what happens is, this false ego is what binds the soul to the subtle body. That's because of this. Once this body is there, the consciousness can only go this way. It cannot go anywhere else. So that very subtle layer or subtle thing that binds the soul's consciousness to the body-mind machine, that is called false.
I think we are running late. Most of the kids are here. And give them the opportunity that they have been requesting.
Okay.
And maybe we'll move there, like the teenagers. If you it's already, you can anyway, we were all late. Most of the teenagers were late, and we will shift. But the others should be happy. But we got something.
We got a great thing.
But tomorrow is exclusively 100.
So, Prabhu, we should ask questions from tomorrow, right? This today, last question we can ask.
Yeah. You can just continue your question, note it down. Tomorrow you can ask.
Yeah, definitely. So
Prabhu, just one question of Prabhu was explaining this, right? Can I ask that small?
Otherwise, patience will be longer.
My original question I will ask tomorrow, Prabhu. So from the explanation you gave, right, Prabhu? So false ego, that looks like, false ego is important because it is connecting the soul to body, like it is connecting, like you said. So that means we say we should leave the false ego, right? So how that, so technically we cannot leave the false ego to function, or in which stage that?
no, so can we leave the false ego? Well, it's not something matter of leaving the false ego. It is just leaving the false part of the ego.
What are people that say?
Suppose I'm sitting here and watching a movie. I'll say if I were forward watching a movie, then I can look at the movie and look at maybe somebody sitting next to me and talk with them and do other things. But suppose somebody goes into movie theater. Now nowadays everybody can watch movies at home, but still people go to theaters. Because as soon as you go to a theater, two things happen. First thing, all the lights go off. And then the light goes on. then the attention gets confused. In principle, you can say I can look and talk with people, look at other than talk with others. But the chances of doing that are much less. Sometimes people have these video games where they're not just playing with their hands, but they have contraptions around their ears and the contraption around their legs, and they have some goggles. So it's like a complete immersive experience. Now that person may be fighting with someone, and they're fighting, pulling this, and then suddenly somebody touches them on the back. And I was like, what happened? So they think somebody's a monster from their structure. So for us, a child who's playing a video game is completely lost in the video game. The child has the capacity to perceive the rest of reality. But that capacity is lost at that time when the child is completely lost. So false ego is like that. So the consciousness of the soul can perceive many things, but due to the false ego, the consciousness gets completely caught in the body-mind machine and what is experienced thereby.
Is there something called real ego also?
I is the sense of I-ness is always there. So I am the Atma. I am the soul is a part of Krishna. There is two egos. I am XYZ. I am the body. I am male. I am female. I am Indian. I am American. This so I part is real, but what I am, that part is real. What follows after I am, okay, I am is essentially the sense of ego. So put it this way. I am. This sense of I-ness is ego, and that itself is not a bad thing. But if I am identifying with my temporary identities, then that is when it becomes false ego. But when we identify with our eternal identity, then it becomes true.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good.
Great. Thank you very much.
His Grace Chaitanya Prabhu.
Before I just say here and keep the stage.
Do we have a TV there also?
And you want
Or